Democrat of the day, Senate District 44, Ann Johnson Stewart is kind enough to join us here today to talk about what would be a pickup for the DFL if she is to go into St. Paul starting next year. Ann, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Matt. Good to be here.
Good to have you with us. Sorry for the delay on this.
That's okay.
You are looking at a seat. I believe the incumbent, the Republican, has decided not to run again, correct?
That's right. He announced on day 2 of session that he wasn't going to run. So I had already started my campaign last August. So I had a few months of blissful non-compete, but didn't last long.
Well, and you, of course, this is Senate District 44, we should mention, this is a good chunk of Plymouth, right?
Yep, it's most of Plymouth, half of Minnetonka, and all of Woodland.
Woodland. My parents used to live in Woodland many years ago.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Do you know any Democrats that live there still?
I might know
We're
one.
trying to find them.
I might know one or two. I'll talk to you after the show. Okay, I'll get in touch with you there.
Excellent. Good to know.
And by the way, whenever I say, of course, when I say Plymouth, I always say Plymouth. I say it because I love you. Your city is great. I've been amazed at how well that city has grown as well over the years, because it just is. I remember the days back when I was in high school and I'd deliver pizzas there for Domino's, and it was just a few outcrops of neighborhoods around, and now it is one of the biggest and fastest growing suburbs in the metro area.
Yeah, my husband grew up here too, just a few miles. We actually live in Minnetonka, but he grew up in Plymouth, and when he grew up, his was the only house on Dunkirk Lane, and now, of course, it's solid.
Yeah.
In the last 25 years that we've lived here, we've seen all the farmland turn to big subdivisions. There's a lot of growth out here because of the schools.
Mm-hmm. Well, and fantastic schools. But it's a fantastic district, definitely a district that's been moving more and more to the DFL column. Let's find out a little bit more about you, though, if that's all right. Ann Johnson Stewart, give us a little update. What is exactly your background? Give us the story.
Okay. Well, I am 66 years old. I am a civil engineer, and that's what really motivated me to run. I'm very concerned about our roads and bridges and water systems. So much so that I started looking for another civil engineer who might be interested in running, and I came up empty. So here I am. I'm a small business owner too. I own an engineering firm that I started 25 years ago. We do construction inspection for the government on federal and state funded projects. And I also teach at the University of Minnesota. So I was director of the construction management program there for 15 years. So I have a background of teaching, engineering, and I'm also a business person. So I guess I check a lot of boxes, and I look like a pretty good candidate. So even when I said I was mildly interested, I really got a lot of support. So it's been fantastic. And I think we're going to win. We're going to work really hard. We're not coasting, but I really think that District 44 is ready to have a Democrat again in the Senate.
Oh, I think there's a very good chance you could win. We were going to put nothing for granted, people. We work our cabooses off, but I think we can take 44 for sure. So what about this? I mean, as you said, you were initially kind of in this. You've been in this race for a while. What was the initial thing that said to yourself, you know what, enough's enough, I'm running?
Well, I was at a women winning event as a guest last June, and this is a little embarrassing, but I'm just going to say it. I really didn't even know who my senator was. We had Terry Bonoff for a long time, and I kind of just took for granted that we had good representation. Well, she left to run against Eric Paulson for Congress, and she lost. And when that happened, we got Paul Anderson, who is a pretty conservative Republican. And I didn't even realize that, which, like I said, I'm embarrassed to say. But when I started to look him up and see what he stood for, he did not stand for most of what I believed in. And so one of the things he was most vehemently against was a gas tax and road and bridge spending. Mm-hmm. He's also anti-choice and a couple other things that irritated me. So I decided that I would throw my weight behind the woman who ran last time, Deb Calvert. But she wasn't going to run, and she convinced me to run instead. So, I feel really good about the fact that we've been in this for a long time because, a couple things happened. I got an opponent for the primary. We have a strong, very wealthy opponent in the general election, but we were organized and ready because we had been working for so many months. So Once I dove in, I really felt the weight of the DFL behind me, and I felt really prepared for a first-time candidate. So it's been a extremely positive experience, and I'm really having a great time.
I'm glad. Let's talk. Civil engineering as opposed to uncivil engineering. Let's talk civil engineering because I am. You and I are similar on this level. I was a traffic reporter for 10 plus years, and one of the things that always frustrated me was you had Republicans who would scream, we can't spend money on mass transportation, but we need to spend money on roads. But then, of course, they would never spend any money on roads outside of some pet projects, which kept their donors happy, basically. But when you look at what Minneapolis, St. Paul is, you look at the state of Minnesota, because we can go out to state highways across the rural parts of the state as well that are grossly outdated. We need to upgrade them desperately. The reality is we need a massive investment into our road infrastructure because as we're growing right now, we can't just piecemeal this up and hope that enough pieces work so that we can have functioning roads.
No, you're exactly right. And it's not just roads, it's water systems and sewer systems.
Yes.
The bonding bill that got held up in the House had $1.4 billion towards roads, bridges, and water systems. $300 million of that money was for fixing people's pipes, for clean water. And, homeowners, that's a hard sell. For us to upgrade our own pipes out to the connector, most people don't have money to do that. They don't, it's just not in our budget. For people to not have clean water it's horrific. And we were all watched when that happened in Flint, Michigan. I can't imagine it could happen here. But if we don't start spending money on upgrading water systems, we're going to be in much more trouble than if we go into a few potholes. I mean, a road is something that if we have distress in a road, that's an annoyance and irritating. And if we have congestion, also annoying and irritating. But it's not fatal or it's not horrible. Now, if a bridge falls down, that's pretty fatal and that's pretty horrible. And to my shock, we saw that happen, on 35W, and we still didn't see a lot of investment in bridges.
No.
But when water systems and sanitary sewers start to fail, that is going to have some dire consequences, and we've got to get in there. If you did not maintain your house and things started to fall apart, you would pretty easily understand why that happened. But people choose to ignore infrastructure. And because we've been patching it together for literally a century, I don't think they have any understanding of really what could happen here. So it's really important.
And it might not be the sexiest issue, but the reality is that because, I talked to Susan Kent about this, the Senate Minority Leader, Woodbury, she's the same thing. You're dependent on your local communities then to basically do what they can with their limited budgets. And if you're in a community that doesn't have the excess funds, then you're out of luck. And so you have to have a more comprehensive plan. This is why you have to have it come from the state.
That's exactly right. And that's what the $300 million for pipes, that was for poor communities because they don't have a means to, do a housing or a hotel tax or, anything around tourism or they're very limited in how they can raise revenue.
And toll roads don't work. I can just tell you, as a guy that's driven on toll roads, it's an immediate economic nullifier, so you can't do it that way.
Well, and they're not allowed. They're not allowed in Minnesota, so they can't even, unless the legislature changed its mind. So,
well, Republicans want to. Anyway. That was what their idea was for a while there. All right, so once again, in the age of coronavirus, volunteering is different. We need phone bankers. We need donations. Obviously, I want to send as many people as possible to your website. And how can they get in touch with you?
So it's Ann, A-N-N, Johnson Stewart, like Martha, Stewart, AnnJohnsonStewart.com. But if they just Google Ann Johnson Stewart for Senate, they'll find us. And we have really done great work with phone banking. We're reaching a lot of people. We had a massive turnout for the primary. I think a lot of people know who I am, but we're still trying to call voters every single day between now and November 3rd. And that's what we're doing. We can't go door to door. The GFL has strongly encouraged that, and we're abiding by that. So we're reaching out to voters in other ways.
Well, and I want to highly recommend, and this is kind of the spiel I always do, Ann, which is this. help your local DFLers. By all means, help them out. But if you're in a relatively safe district, Senate District 44 is ripe for the picking. The DFL can have that seat back. That's one seat to get us back to the majority. So if you can have some time, and it's not a far drive. It's the West Metro, for goodness sakes, people. You just go, it's right off 169 heading over that direction. You can go over there. There's easy. Highway 55 is delightful. You can go out there and help out any way you can or make a donation. I mean, the question is this, is what are you doing to make the Blue Wave happen? Help Ann Johnson Stewart. And I'll link to everything a little bit later on. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being Democrat of the Day.
Wow, Matt. Well, I appreciate you raising the volume about me. So thank you very much. And I'm really excited to serve. We're going to win, and this is just one vote, one seat closer to taking over the Senate DFL majority.
And we need, and if you haven't, we need Ann in there. We need Ann in St. Paul, for goodness sakes. Ann Johnson Stewart, Senate District 44, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Matt.
You bet.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.